Gamer Weekender live stream. I'm still Zoe, and I'm here with Al and Jack to talk about Total War Thrones of Britannia. So, tell me about the game.
Well, this is our first Total War Sagas title, which is a sort of subdivision of Total War where we deal with more focused geographic areas, more focused time frames, and really kind of pivotal flashpoints in history. So this particular game deals with, so the map is the British Isles, and it's very, very dense and full of fun and games, lots to explore and lots to conquer. And it starts in 878 AD, which is the year the Viking invasion of Britain ended. So there's this sense of uneasy peace across the British Isles, and you can play as one of 10 different factions to carve out an empire for yourself and become a supreme king of the British Isles, essentially. So I'm going to pass you over to Jack, who's our game director, and he's going to run you through some of the major feature changes that we've had in the game.
Awesome.
So, with our Saga titles, they're very focused in nature, so we've gone to inject a lot of story into the game. So each faction has a unique event chain that's going on, where players making choices throughout. Like, we don't want it to be a linear path that you're going through, as the sandbox nature of Total War is one of its strengths. So you've got these choices like, as Mead, one of the Gaelic kingdoms, early on you get a choice to either attack a fellow Gaelic kingdom or attack the Vikings who are threatening them. And you can get all these kind of choices going on throughout the game. And these events are also happening for the AI factions, that each time you play the campaign, you're getting a different story each time, and you're deciding how it plays out, which ties in well with our victory conditions. We have 3 types to reflect the different ways people play our games. You have conquest for people who want to conquer the map and paint it all their colour. You have fame for people who want to build up, research technologies, make excellent looking cities. And the kingdom victory conditions is more for those wanting to follow a fixed path, like fulfill certain conditions, win the game that way. There's also an ultimate victory condition, which requires you to complete a long victory of one of those types, and then there's an extra challenge at the end we're not talking about yet. One of the big changes we've made is to recruitment. You no longer have any recruitment based on buildings, which is a first for a Total War game. Instead, you have this global pool of units that are available. Each unit has a max number you could have available, current amount available, and a chance per turn for them to replenish. It means that as you recruit, you're reducing those pools, so it might take a long time for the meat unit to appear again. And not just that, when you recruit the units, they appear at 25% strength. So it takes time for your armies to be ready to fight. It means you have to make a lot more strategic choices about when you recruit your armies and when you attack, and you have to think in advance. There's another little nice extra with recruitment this time. Units require food as well as money to upkeep. So if you run out of food, your armies will start to desert. You better protect your miners.
Food, so that's fair enough.
Yeah, it's really quite tough. Because wars and food is important, we have the war fervor mechanic. This is development from what we did in Age of Charlemagne in the War Arenas feature. But instead of there, where it was just like this negative factor you had to try and mitigate, it's now got positive and negative levels. So being at war for a long time will bring it down, but being at peace will bring it up. And if you get into the negative levels, you'll suffer penalties to public order, people will view your king a lot worse, because he's just letting this war drag on for too long. You've got to end it. And if you get positive, sure, you'll get bonuses to your armies and stuff. But if it gets too high, your king is going to suffer penalties again. It's an era of your king is all about redistributing wealth to his nobles. If you're not fighting wars, you're not getting gold, you can't keep your nobles happy. And all that stuff about the faction leader is the key for politics in the game. We've got the family tree back. Alfred the Great was the youngest of 4 brothers to take the throne. So, no one's immortal. You've got to be careful with your kings in battle. And your king gives bonuses across your faction. If it's negative, you'll suffer diplomatic penalties, you'll suffer public order penalties, and if it's high, you'll get some bonuses to those as well. So you've got to plan carefully about who's going to take over next, and you've got various political actions to keep people happy. And you can also keep them happy with governors and estates. You can appoint them to a province where the character's unique traits will give bonuses, or you can hand out estates to characters to keep them happy. Certain regions and buildings will give you estates, which you can then hand out to keep them happy, because if you keep them all on your king, people aren't going to be happy. But once you've given them out to other nobles, you can't get them back easily. Like, you've got to do actions and sort of intrigues to get them back as well. So it's a really careful balancing system you've got to do. And as you get bigger and bigger, it'll be harder to manage. speaking of the characters, we've sort of refined them into two sections. There's their traits and their followers. Their traits are the ones they gain sort of through the gameplay, like characters spawn with a bunch of personality traits that will sort of point you towards having them as a governor or a general, but then through your actions they'll gain more, but you don't have precise control over it. The ones you do have control over are followers. And for Thrones we've also don't have agents in the game. So a lot of the gameplay from agents has been rolled into these followers. You get ones which boost movement distance, you get ones which can stop enemy armies replenishing in the same province. They're really powerful. It means that if you lose these characters, you've got to start again, you've got to build them back up over time. And the final sort of big change we've made is to provinces. Minor settlements in Thrones no longer have garrisons, they don't have walls, so you've got to protect them with your armies. And these miners don't have those features because they're farms, they're abbeys, they're mines, you know. We've so zoomed in now that you can't have everything fortified. You've got to protect them with your troops. And the major settlements, whilst you do have more choices, the choices are often more about bonuses to those minor settlements, especially as you don't have to build military buildings now. And you also get sort of different types of major settlements. You get monasteries in Ireland, markets in England, so you get a lot of texture to the provinces across the whole campaign map. And now for something we've not shown before, the settlement maps, which I'll hand over to Al.
Okay, thanks, Zach. So yes, one of the sort of focuses on the battle side of the game has been to create some really unique settlement maps that people fight across. Unique visually in that they are very authentic to the period. I mean, this is kind of early medieval England. So you'll see the kind of designs we've gone for, which are sort of circular hill forts and big, full of round houses and long houses and things like that, are very kind of period sensitive. So you'll get that real kind of early medieval vibe when you're fighting across them. But essentially we wanted to create a big range of very unique settlements that are all going to look and feel very, very different to play across, with, you know, different tactical challenges in them for both the attacker and the defender, and absolutely sort of packed with period detail as well. So, you know, you fight a battle to capture a city in Scotland, it's going to feel very different to fighting a battle to capture a city sort of in southern England or something like that. All the designs are very, very different, and we have a whole range of these very unique city types. And we're just looking down on Dublin now. That's the fly past we've done. That is Dublin in the in 878 AD. And here we've got a top-down image of the city again. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the design and how that's changed since Attila. So we look back at a lot of them because the game is based on Attila. It's based on the Attila engine with some performance optimizations. And we looked at the city designs, the settlement designs for that, and we found a lot of the streets were kind of very narrow, with little dead ends and U-bends and strange little routes that would kind of fox your army as it was moving towards that central capture point. So one of the things we've tried to do is, what you're seeing on the map now, the white areas that are outlined are hard collision areas. Now all our maps have this, they're areas that your armies can't move around in because there's a tight cluster of village huts or something like that. And what we've done is we've separated these out, so your armies can more easily manoeuvre in formation around the city, and you can get all those benefits that you usually get from fighting an open field battle with having secure flanks and things like that. And we've built, you know, tighter areas that are more of a challenge and a bottleneck, but also much wider areas where you've got the opportunity to marshal your forces more easily, effectively. We also have these kind of soft collision areas like marketplaces here, which they don't offer any obstacle to troops moving through the city, but they're there to provide visual detail and authenticity as well. So let's look at another one of the cities. Oh no, sorry, this is Dublin still, we're still in Dublin. Yes, this is where one of our big focuses lies with these city designs. It's creating tactical options for both the attacker and the defender as well. So this city, Dublin, has it has a gatehouse right on the landward side. There's a gatehouse here. These are two potential entry points for an attacker. There's also a fairly unprotected. There's only a couple of towers protecting it. There's a beach area, so you could perform an amphibious assault there if you wanted, possibly in conjunction with a land push as well. So, and in the centre of the city, you'll find a sort of midway capture point. If you capture that, your troops will get a nice army-wide buff to their morale. So it's a really nice kind of, you know, it's a time to regroup your army before the big push up to here, which is the final the major settlement capture point, the major strategic point. Once you capture this particular point here, you'll capture the city. And again, it's a total war game. You'll always see tons of detail if you get the camera right down close, like you saw that Celtic knotwork on the standing stones there. And if we fly right back over to the other end of the city again here, this is an example of one of those unique features we're trying to build into many of the maps. So this little long barrow here, perhaps the resting place of a revered Gaelic warrior or something like that, but it also has a tactical use as well. This palisade wall gives pretty much 360-degree arc of fire to any javelin men or archers or artillery pieces you tuck behind it. So it's also providing, you know, it's a point of pride for the city, but it's also a great defensive point for the defender as well. So let's take a look at another one of the cities. This is Urquhart, which is, in modern terms, this is Urquhart Castle, which is right on Loch Ness. So that's actually Loch Ness, the river you can see in the background.
No monster in the Loch Ness this time, though, right?
Well, maybe. Keep your eyes peeled.
Okay.
You may see something. And again, this is another very unique city design. This is more of a kind of like a tiered wedding cake design. There's 3 separate circular layers to this city that will bottleneck the defender and the attacker as they go in further and further. So, and it's also a very vertical map. So the attacker's going to have to not only forge his way through each of those areas, but ascend the hills into the next area. And of course, this is going to take its toll on your troops' stamina as they go as well. So you're going to have to think very hard about keeping fresh troops at the back and not fighting, and maybe cycling them in for the next push. And when you get right up to this top level that we're seeing now, you're really up quite high. I mean, from a human perspective, this is halfway up a mountain, effectively. And it's also a tremendous defensive point here because there's this massive long circular wall that looks right out over the city and is great for defenders because you've got, again, javelin men, archers, crossbow men, artillery pieces. If you've got all those stacked up on the wall there, you're just going to be picking that enemy attacker, the attacking enemy, to pieces as they're coming in as well. So, you know, you've got to think about that from both a defensive and offensive perspective, and that's the final capture point, the Celtic Cross there. And we'll take a look at one last city. Now, this is, again, completely different layout, completely unique design. And this is Dunfermline, which is in southern Scotland, which is Dunkeld now, I believe, city of Dunkeld as it exists today. So you can start on that little side island we just flew past. You could put your siege equipment there and work your way up to the wall or bust through this gate. Or you could deploy near this gate and attempt to go straight for it, and then maybe work your way around the side and go up into the centre of the city. But this side island here, this fortified side island, is a great example of why you should always examine very carefully all the deployment zones in a map, because this offers a fairly unique opportunity. If you can break your way in through this gate and over the walls here, then this particular little sort of fortified side island offers one of those intermediate defensive points. So you capture that, again, you get that big morale buff across your entire army. So that can be really useful after some initial skirmishing in the streets. And then you've got a choice of three bridges across the river to cross. You could take all 3 and try and split the enemy's forces and then combine your guys at the top, or you could pile them all up one. Again, it's all about having extra choices. You know, if you see the defenders in a certain disposition, you've got choices about how you attack that and about how you tackle his forces until you get to the top and you capture again the final settlement flag here. So to wrap up, really, our whole aim is to provide a tremendous amount of variety in battle. We've got 16 of these completely unique city layouts and a further 30 minor settlement layouts, which you'll see across the British Isles. And they're going to look and feel very different. If you see a settlement in, the sort of the wet flatlands of Essex, it's going to feel and look very, very different to one that you might see in the Scottish Highlands, right, up there in the mountains. So, we want people to come away from having their battles and feeling that they've had a really, really unique experience in that single one battle. So yeah, the game's out April 19th this year. It's available for pre-order now on Steam, and it's 10% off for the pre-order period as well. So,
amazing.
So, yeah.
It looks like you put in so much thought into the first Total War Saga game, because it's the first time that explores like a moment in history. So why did you pick this specific time period for that?
It's an era that's got a lot of attention in the media at the moment, not just in terms of TV shows, but also like the BBC's done now for the great documentaries. And it felt like a great contrast to Attila, which Attila was all about the big invasion of the Huns and their destruction. This is the moment after an invasion. It's what happens next. Who rises up from the rubble of this great Viking army that's come along and overthrown the old political order? It makes it a really interesting moment.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. So how are you using this Thrones of Britannia to explore a new element of Total War?
Because it's so focused, it really lets us play more with things like narrative and to sort of try things we might have thought about for a while, but maybe haven't had the chance. I mean, I think the overall numbers have changed in Thrones, add up to a really different feel. Like, I think it's going to surprise even veterans of the series with how much they have to relearn and change their playstyle.
I mean, the map alone is 23 times the size of Attila, is that right?
The British Isles of Attila.
British Isles, yeah.
Yeah, it's hugely detailed, it's ridiculous.
So how much work went into making a map that size not feel like it was any less quality?
It's research, really. So the campaign map, you see things like Giant's Causeway, Stonehenge. It's a lot of time spent modelling the coastlines of Ireland and the Western Isles of Scotland. I have spent far too much time in programmes carefully modelling coasts. I don't like the Western Isles of Scotland anymore.
But it sounds like you put in tons of thought into it. It's basically a history lesson in itself when you're playing it, which sounds amazing. Yeah. So thanks for that. Thank you. So next up we have PC Building Simulator. So make sure to tune in about 10 minutes to see exactly what gameplay like that's like.